The Spirit of Kansas City is a creative and entertaining program that showcases the rich and colorful history of Kansas City. The Spirit of Kansas City also focuses on who and what is making history today and those factors that will influence the city's future. Hi, I'm Vincent Ange, Spirit of Kansas City host. Today we're joined by 4 former mayors who exemplify that spirit more than anyone else. We have Dr. Charles Wheeler. Dr. Wheeler served as mayor of Kansas City from 1971 to 1979. He is a doctor, lawyer, former state senator, and judge. During his tenure, the city experienced a rebirth in construction, including buildings like Kemper Arena, which hosted the 1976 Republican National Convention. Our downtown airport is named after him. Thank you, Dr. Wheeler, for being here.
Good to be here.
Richard Berkeley had one of the longest tenures of any mayor in Kansas City history. He served 3 terms from 1979 to 1991. The face and the skyline of Kansas City also changed under his leadership, highlighted by new skyscrapers like the Town Pavilion and One Kansas City Place. Our Riverfront Park is named after him. Thank you, Mr. Berkeley.
Pleasure.
Mayor Berkeley.
Glad to have the opportunity.
Congressman Emanuel Cleaver served our city government for over 20 years, including 2 successful terms as mayor from 1991 to 1999. He continues to serve our citizens, but now on a higher level as a United States Congressman, where he's in his 3rd term. During his tenure as mayor, he helped lead the efforts to successfully recruit new businesses to Kansas City, including Citicorp, Transamerica, and of course Harley-Davidson. An important street in Kansas City now bears his name. Thank you, Congressman, for being here.
Good to be with you.
And Kay Barnes held office of mayor from 1999 to 2007. Under her leadership, downtown Kansas City experienced a renaissance that is still evolving today. Of course, these efforts are highlighted by the Power and Light District and the newest crown jewel of downtown, the Sprint Center. The entry plaza of the Sprint Center bears her name. Thank you, Mayor Barnes, for being here.
Happy to be here.
Good. Now today we're going to ask you some questions about the energy and the creativity and the spirit of Kansas City that each of you have and each of you have seen through all of your tenure. And the first question that we'd like to ask each of you, and we'll start with Dr. Wheeler, is what inspired you to run for mayor and how did you keep that inspiration alive while you were in office?
Well, I was inspired by being born in Kansas City, and I recognize we've got a central location and a lot of fine citizens who like to work hard. And I think it's still the greatest city to live in.
Thank you. Mayor Berkeley.
Well, I have to echo Charlie's comment about the greatest city. I think we're all very fortunate. We have our ups and downs. We always have lots of problems, but other places do too. And I think we just have wonderful citizens, wonderful spirit, wonderful ideas, and it's a very livable community. That used to be our theme at one time.
Congressman Cleaver.
Well, let me correct one thing. You said that a higher position is Congress. I'm not sure that's accurate. I'm not sure that there is any position on the planet more significant than mayor. Nobody goes to Washington to find out whether or not the trash is going to be picked up and the street lights are working or the stop sign is down. That's what happens in Kansas City. And for those of us who believe that this is one of the plums of the planet, then there's no better place to serve as mayor than Kansas City, Missouri.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Mayor Barnes.
Well, I grew up in St. Joseph and always looked to Kansas City during those years as being this huge metropolitan area, which it is, and was always attracted to it. So it was a great opportunity for me to first serve on the city council when Dick was mayor, and Emanuel and I were together during that time on the council, and then to be able to come back years later and be elected mayor. It truly has been a wonderful honor, and Kansas City is the greatest.
Good. Now, how did you keep that inspiration going through all the politics and the day-to-day grind at City Hall?
One of the experiences that meant so much to me as mayor was to have so many people around me, starting with staff and then expanding out into all of the people we have the opportunity as mayor to select to serve on boards and commissions. And so there ends up being literally hundreds, even thousands of people who in one way or another are part of your team. So that's what keeps you going, because they have their level of enthusiasm and passion about what they're doing for the city, just as you do.
Wonderful. Mayor Berkeley, is there one project that if you had to do it over again, you would do over today, or is there a new project that you would add if you were mayor today?
Wow. Of course, we never think there's anything we ought to do over, but
Sure.
I would say that the school situation is one that we've all felt we were sort of a little beyond our ability to do anything, but we could do something. And then each of the other three mayors have done things to try to help the school situation. I was involved in the development of the half-cent sales tax with Councilman Joe Shaughnessy that helped the school districts. But I think we're seeing now a possibility with the new superintendent, and we're talking about the Kansas City, Missouri School District only here, that we may really see a change. I think there's a frustration that's built up over the years, and I think there's a dynamic that's really working positively now. So I'm very optimistic about that. But that was an area that was of frustration when you're in office because you didn't have direct responsibility.
Sure. Dr. Wheeler, is there a particular project that you would do today if you were mayor?
Yes, I went in with the idea in mind that we really needed a simpler city charter and that we should go back to the Democrat and Republican way of doing business, especially after spending 4 years in Jefferson City.
You saw things at a whole different angle. Congressman Cleaver?
Well, I would go back with what Dick said. One of the things that I dealt with, and frankly, we only missed doing this by, I think, 2 or 3 votes. And that is, I would have loved to have had the opportunity, as other mayors in some of the other cities like Boston and Chicago, to take complete control of the school district, because we get some of the blame anyway, no matter what we do or say, or no matter what the charter says or what state law says about who controls the school district. And I think that in many instances, the mayors around the country would make decisions that maybe wouldn't be made, although I agree that the current superintendent is certainly moving in the right direction.
Great. Mayor Barnes?
I think it is important to not necessarily focus on a single project, although I couldn't agree more about the school district, the Kansas City, Missouri district. But also, I think it's important to move multiple initiatives forward at the same time. I think each of us as mayor has gotten labeled as focusing on one particular area, and that's not at all reflective of what you actually do as mayor. So I think we have to keep pushing the message that this is one community with multiple needs, multiple concerns, and those all need to be addressed as we move forward together.
Is there one project or one moment that you would say was your favorite as a mayor?
I think the day of the election related to the Sprint Center, where we had to go to the voters and gain their approval for the funding mechanism. It was an amazing day. All of us have been involved in all kinds of elections, but to go to different polling places and see people wearing either Royals or Chiefs sweaters and shirts, the level of enthusiasm that day, people standing in long lines to vote, and almost like a pep rally as far as wanting to make sure that St. Louis and Enterprise Car Rental didn't tell us how to run our city. So it was a particularly exciting day. And speaking of the spirit of Kansas City, you really saw that spirit at the polling places.
Now, since you brought up St. Louis, follow-up question would be, how much do you think that influenced our vote here, knowing that Enterprise and others we may have been trying to block it?
I think it influenced it dramatically. Our polling early on showed that this would be really tough to get passed, and the more that Enterprise invested against us in the campaign, spending well over $1 million, the higher our poll numbers went. When they brought people in, over 100 as I recall, from around the region who were employees of Enterprise and had them at the polling places, I was really concerned about the well-being of some of them, because the people who were again waiting to vote were so energized for Kansas City and against them that we came close to having some confrontations.
Oh, wow. What a victory. What a victory. Dr. Wheeler, do you have a favorite moment as mayor?
Yes, I have a favorite moment when we entertained the Republican National Convention. I thought Kansas City put its best foot forward. And we had bi-state cooperation. We even had good cooperation with St. Louis at that particular time. And speaking of St. Louis, you know, the high-speed rail program is supposed to start in St. Louis and go first to Chicago and then to Kansas City. And we've got to start solving our transportation problems in this community. So that's the second high spot that comes to mind.
I'd love to hear your
I'd add
highlight.
on to Charlie's comments about the convention. It was also a bipartisan effort, and the whole community, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, all pitched in and made that shining time for Kansas City. As far as the single most exciting event, I hate to stray from the governmental, but I have to say winning the World Series happened to involve
I was
St.
going to
Louis.
bring that up.
But that was pretty exciting. I was very concerned because I'd made a bet with Vince Schimmel, who was the mayor of St. Louis, that we would give the other a chance to be the mayor of our city for one day if we lost the, and I'm thinking earlier in the game, of the sixth game, I think, why did I ever make that bet? And then we, fortunately, due to an error of judgment on the umpire's part, but we won it anyway. But I never got a chance to be in St. Louis. Vince left town, and that was the end. But it was an exciting time for all of it, and it boosts everybody's spirit. I mean, it's, as you mentioned with regard to an election, it can be different things that happen that cause the community, and it happens in other communities too, but I think Kansas City, they really get enthusiastic.
Now, where were you on that final out that Darryl Motley caught in Game 7 to win the game?
I was at the ballpark.
You were at the ballpark?
I saw all 7 games.
Wonderful.
I was very, very fortunate.
I was lucky to work there at the time.
Oh, did you?
And just, there's nothing like it. I'd love to hear one of your favorite moments.
I was at the ballpark as well.
All right, very good.
Yeah, but my favorite moment was with Harley Davidson when their board chairman and CEO, along with other executives from the company, flew into Kansas City to thank me for applying for the plant or bidding on the plant, and that they were sorry, but they were going to go to Louisville. And then against all of the council of the lawyers and EDC, Economic Development Corporation, I said, what was the difference? And they said, well, your air quality control requirements are too stringent, and if we stay here, we're going to have to put a piece of equipment on the building that's going to cost about $3 million, and if we go to Louisville, we don't have to do that. And I said, $3 million, we'll do it. We'll put the equipment on your building. So what's your decision now? They said, well, $3 million, we'll come to Kansas City. And I looked over at all the lawyers and all of the EDC people, and everybody had their heads down. And the chairman of the board stood up and we shook hands. And they were excited, and I was excited. The staff wasn't quite excited, but they, you know, that moment of winning, and particularly winning over Louisville, because they had already stolen, they had already been successful in getting something else from us earlier. So the joy of that day was probably unparalleled.
Good. Good work on that project. Was there a low point in your tenure?
Well, you know, I think if you look at the things that we were unable to do, there clearly were low points. I remember I thought for sure we were going to get recycling approved, and it took Mayor Barnes to do that. But I had been a person involved with environmental issues, and I thought we were going to do that. And that night, I can remember going down into the dungeons of despair over the fact that we lost. And not only did we lose everywhere, the greatest loss was in the African American community from which I had come.
Mayor Berkeley, did you have a low moment?
Well, it's very mixed in this respect. The Hyatt disaster was probably the low point. That was sort of an unparalleled situation and a great tragedy for many families in Kansas City. And the irony of the fact that it happened on a Hall property, which there were leading families, one of the leading families in Kansas City. It was a great irony, but I think the spirit of the people came through again, where there was a great assistance offered by people. There was no problem of any disruption that the police had to worry about. Whether it be some of the workers that got in and really did everything they could to save everybody's life. That you saw big husky guys down there, sort of gently dealing with people. It was a very depressing because of the tragedy of 114 people being killed, but it did show Kansas City's true spirit, which was uplifting from that standpoint.
Absolutely. Dr. Wheeler, was there a low point for you?
Yeah, I had a very serious flood to contend with. Lost a lot of people and caused a lot of damage. Dick Berkeley was the mayor pro tem, and he helped me a great deal through that crisis. But everybody who takes elected office goes through tough times.
Absolutely. Mayor Barnes.
I think 9/11 was certainly potentially catastrophic, even in Kansas City. Certainly it was a catastrophe in other places in the country. I think one of the most difficult parts of that day and the aftermath was not knowing what was happening and what might happen. We had hundreds of people landing in airplanes in Kansas City because of its central location, and as I know everyone remembers, all the planes had to land, any that were flying at that point in time. So we had that to deal with, and I remember distinctly being with the fire chief, the police chief, and other people involved with emergency work at the police department building downtown. And finally the police chief and fire chief came up to me and said, "We need you to leave." And I knew I hadn't done anything wrong because I was really just observing what they were doing. And then they said, "We cannot have all of us in the same building because we don't know what may happen." So we went to another part of the city, and that really was an eye-opener for me personally. And then of course we had the aftermath of it, and then we had the anthrax actually show up in Kansas City, and that had to be dealt with too. But it really gave me an appreciation for our emergency management people, fire, police. They are amazing, and I'll always remember everything I learned from them.
Wonderful.
I'd have to say about
Sure.
fire, police, and whatever, with regard to Hyatt, obviously they were very much involved in all the emergency medical people and well coordinated. It was a really professional approach to things, and saved a lot of lives. Not a single person that got to a hospital that passed away.
Definitely a strength of the city. What would you say currently the top 2 or 3 strengths of Kansas City are?
Oh, I would say the people, just the general attitude, which I think is generally positive. Not that we don't have bumps in the road. That would be one of the strengths, and just the quality of life here. I mean, we have, as a lot of people have said, virtually everything you want except for mountains and oceans. But otherwise, we have a great diversity. Our arts is a very strong part of Kansas City, very unique for a city our size to have quite the number of high-quality artistic activities, both performing arts and visual arts. It's a great place to live and a wonderful place to raise kids, as is often said, but it really is. I'm so glad I came back here. I grew up here, lived away for about 9 years, and then came back, and I'm really happy I did.
Dr. Wheeler, what would you say our strengths are today?
Well, I want to emphasize the health facilities we have at this particular time. We have 3 medical schools in this city, and we have a new law passed by the congressman and his associates that will challenge the city to implement that law so the American public learns just what a good law it is. And it's a great opportunity for Kansas City that we can work together on.
Wonderful. Mayor Barnes, any strengths that you see today?
It was interesting. There was a speaker who came to Kansas City recently. I did not hear him speak, but I read an account, and he had written a book about the future of the country and talked about zones of sanity. And Kansas City is a zone of sanity, which is his prediction for the future, as far as quality of life, location, and we always talk about never quite having the highs in the economy that certain parts of the country experience periodically, but we also don't have the lows, the real dips. So all in all, in addition to a beautiful city, I think we have so much to offer.
Wonderful. Congressman Cleaver, talk about the strengths you see.
Well, one of them would be these guys. There are not many cities where you could have an assemblage of former mayors with the expertise and wisdom just from being there that can benefit others. And I was fortunate to have Ike Davis, former Mayor Ike Davis, for most of my first term in office. And I think it's a resource that maybe future mayors will want to utilize. Secondly, most people never realize how significant this is, but we have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals. Forget the record. There are 100 cities around the country who would take the Kansas City Chiefs at 0-16 and have a street party in every part of the city. San Antonio would love to have either the Chiefs or the Royals, and they are almost twice the size of Kansas City. Austin, Texas, all over the country. And I don't think people realize the magic of having professional sports. It helps define our somebodyness as a municipality. It also separates us from the also-rans. You know, the cities that want to be big time, they just can't make it. And I would contend that in the 21st century, you'll